Hi guys, Casey again. I'm going to be bringing another case to you that it's not lesser known in Ireland anyway, but when I tried to find any information on like YouTube or anything, I couldn't. So I genuinely don't know if it's ever been covered on YouTube because I searched and couldn't find it. And so I decided to do the murder of a Bond girl. Celine Cawley was born in 1962 in Howth. She was a model and had appeared in the 1985 James Bond film A View to Kill. So she's actually only in the film for like 20 seconds and she's not even credited, but the Irish media just ran with it, and everything was about a model and former Bond girl. And it was only until I started researching the case that I found out that she was actually only in like a bit part. She met her husband, Eamon Lillis, in Kinsale in 1990, and they had a daughter, Georgia, in 1992. They lived in a €3 million mansion on the affluent Wingate Road in Howth. Celine had set up Toy Town Films, which was like an advertising and film productions, and she set this up so she was the founder and the director, and Eamon Lillis joined in later on 2 years later as a producer. Toy Town, it was a big company. It had lucrative deals with brands like Coca-Cola, Heineken, Carlsberg, Diageo, Volkswagen, and it had lots of international kind of contracts as well. So on Monday, December 15th, 2008, Eamon Lillis woke up at 6:30 a.m. to do his usual sit-ups. At 6:55 a.m. he made tea for himself, and he also brought a cup to his daughter and to his wife. He had said that his wife had a really bad cold, so he had stayed in the upstairs bedroom, but they watched TV in her room until 7:40 when he had a shower. At 8:30 a.m. he then brought their daughter to school. He said that he stopped to talk to an old college friend and talked about Christmas decorations, and told her that he had put up the Christmas lights the night before, but that they had blew. On his way home, he stopped at the Summit newsagents and he picked up a copy of the Irish Times newspaper. He then said that when he arrived home, the 3 dogs they had came rushing to the car, and so he decided to bring them on a walk. The road, he said, was typically quiet for a Monday morning. Because business was slow at that time of year, they weren't in a rush to get into the office. They didn't need to be there until later in the day, and they didn't have anything to do until 2 p.m. when they had an appointment with their pension advisor. At 9:30 a.m. a neighbour heard a woman scream, and then she heard another scream. I'm just going to read the quote from the neighbour because I always find this a bit interesting. Now, she might have called the guards, I don't know, but I always find it interesting when people say that they heard screams, but do nothing about it. Like, call the guards if you hear screaming, you think someone's in trouble. So the quote is, "It was like a shriek. It struck me as very odd. It's a very quiet road. About 30 seconds later it happened again. It was very unusual. I thought there was someone in trouble. It would have struck you as though something had happened to somebody." I think, I could be very prejudiced, but I think for such an affluent area, if someone rang and said that they heard a woman screaming, I think the guards would have been sent. And so I just feel like maybe she never done anything about it until after what happened, and then she told the guards, "Oh, I heard a scream at 9:30. Because otherwise I don't know why the guards wouldn't have been there sooner. That's just my 2 cents on that. At 10:02 a.m. Eamon Lillis made a 999 call, which was picked up in Tara Street Fire Station. On the call he sounded frantic, he sounded very high pitched, and he said that him and his wife had been attacked. He said that his wife had no pulse, and Guardian ambulances rushed onto the scene. Like I said, they're there in minutes because it's an affluent area. That probably sounds prejudice, but it's true. They said when the Gardaí and ambulances arrived, Eamon Lillis was still performing CPR as being instructed by the operator on the line. Something to note, paramedic Stephen O'Reilly from Kilbarrack Fire Station later explained the temperature of her body appeared colder than what it should be for the time she had been exposed on the deck. So basically she was found outside on the patio. At 10:56 a.m. Celine was pronounced dead at Beaumont Hospital. So Celine was found lying in a pool of blood on the frosty decking outside. A blood-stained brick was beside her. Eamon Lillis had scratches on his face. He also had a very pronounced lump, and they said he also had some abrasions on his kneecaps, his knees, and his thinking about it is really like his nail bed on his wedding ring finger had torn away. He told the guards that when he had come back from walking the dogs, he walked in and saw the intruder on top of his wife, wielding the brick and like playing with her top, or you know, being at her top. He said that he ran out roaring, and that the assailant jumped up, swung around and swung at him, and that he slipped, and so then the assailant ran away out the back and over the fence. So Eamon Lillis was brought to the Garda station, and shortly after he asked to use the bathroom, the guards asked him not to wash his hands, and he said that he already did at his home. He also handed over his clothes, which were a grey sweatshirt, a grey t-shirt and green combat trousers. Lillis described the suspect as 5'11", the same as himself. He said he was slim but had a strong build. He was wearing a dark grey bomber jacket that had black sleeves, jeans, and had a black balaclava. Sorry, a ski mask. He said it wasn't a handmade balaclava, it was a ski mask with a white trim around it, and he also had a dark rucksack on his back. He suggested that it was the same person that they suspected had burgled them previously, and apparently he actually gave a name of a local man to the guards. He also told the guards that his wife would have confronted an intruder, saying, quote, "Celine is a fighter, a tough nut. She'd have confronted someone. She was no wallflower," end quote. The Gardaí began their investigation, and pretty soon things were not adding up. So they watched the CCTV of Lillis in Summit Newsagents when he had gone to get the newspaper before he arrived home, and in it he was wearing a pair of jeans and a black jumper. Different clothes obviously to what he gave the guards, and he did not say to them that he had changed his clothes that day for any reason. In the search of the home, they discovered a lot of things. The first thing they discovered was that Lillis and his wife were not sleeping in the same bedroom, and it wasn't just because she had a cold. They had two separate bedrooms. In the wardrobe of his room upstairs, they found a Gap polo shirt that had bloodstains on it, and a pair of boots that also had bloodstains. On his bedside locker, they found a watch that looked like the face of it was smeared, and in the like link of the strap of the watch, they found blood and bits of tissue paper. They also found a handwritten note, which I am going to read out. "She will get that wedding dress. She will marry Kay next June. She will send out the invites in January. You will never be with her properly. The only way you can be with her is to live here. Think of the positives in the relationship. You will never take her to France. She will never share your bed. You are running out of time! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark." In the attic, they found a Rip Curl suitcase, which was hidden under discarded children's toys and books. And in it, there was a camera, a camcorder, and different lenses and stuff. And buried under them, there was a black bin bag. In the black bin bag, there was a pair of jeans and a black jumper, both heavily covered in blood, and there was a mountain of tissue paper, also bloodied. The blood did match Celine. Gardaí also spoke to a woman named Jean Tracy, a native from Tipperary, but worked as a masseuse in the local Hoth Haven beauty clinic. She was Eamon Lillis's masseuse for many months, where he would go get his weekly massage on his back. Jean told the guards that she had been having an affair with Eamon Lillis for the previous 10 weeks. So Jean said that he used to talk about his dogs a lot, and one day she sat in his car while he showed her pictures with the door open. She was just like peeked in and was showing photos of the dogs, and she said that she just noticed how nice his hands were, how like manly his hands were. The following week he mentioned, so he usually gets a back massage, and he mentioned that the muscles on the front of his shoulders here, I'm guessing, were sore, so she had turned him over. This is where I just think it gets weird. She said that normally people close their eyes when you're getting massage. I have been massaged and I used to be a massage therapist, so I know that the natural thing is to close your eyes. And she said that he didn't, that he kept his eyes open and he just kept staring at her. And she said to the point where she was almost uncomfortable. Now I know that, and I know you'll be uncomfortable. I've had clients do that before, where they just look at you. It's so bizarre. And you know, you would normally try, I don't know, I used to just kind of say, like, try nicely say to them, oh, close your eyes and listen to the music and try drift off and stuff. And normally I think they'd get the hint, but he just kept looking at her. And apparently she said, what are you thinking? And he just stared at her and smiled. And then he said, what are you thinking? And so she took his hand and put it on her pulse, on her neck, and said, that's what I'm thinking, and then left the room. I just think that whole thing is just really weird. But anyway, that's apparently how it started. And the following week they kissed for the first time in the treatment room. The following Monday she came to the house because Celine and their daughter were away in England, and then it just went from there. So apparently she had been at the home 3 times, and they had also gone out shopping to like different shopping centres. There were a lot of texts and phone calls between them. He actually gave her own phone, so it was to only be used to talk to him, and he had a second phone as well, and that's how they communicated. So this is just an example of something she sent the night before Celine was murdered. Transporter 3 good. Love, Jason Statham. You staying at home tomorrow? Kay going into the office for part of the morning, so can meet you somewhere. Miss you so much, X. Less than 3 minutes later she sent another message. No pressure though, okay baby, X. Another 2 minutes later she wrote, well, as usual I have to play it by ear, but we'll contact you as soon as possible in the morning. Night my love, I love you infinitely, sleep well, X. On the morning of December 15th at 10:26 she texted him, everything okay? And then at 11:14 a.m, getting a bit worried now babe, X. By this time, obviously, Celine had been pronounced dead in Beaumont Hospital. So on the Tuesday, after Celine had died, she sent, don't want you to think I'm abandoning you, but also to create a distance between them till things have calmed down for both our sakes. She also then said, you know that I miss you and will be thinking of you every step of the way. So obviously they were actually planning to meet the day that Celine had been killed. So obviously evidence was just stacking up at this stage. There was just so much circumstantial and physical evidence. And so on Sunday the 20th of December, so not even a full week later, they arrived to Chris Cawley's home where Eamon and his daughter had been staying at 6:55 a.m. to arrest Lillis, to which he said, what's the basis for this? When Lillis was questioned obviously about all the different things, he explained the sleeping in different bedrooms by saying that it had just come out of habit from when Georgia was a baby, and that they prefer to sleep separately because they both got a good night's sleep and were both able for the day ahead the next morning then for work. He said Celine was a heavy snorer and would like kick around in the bed. He denied it was a sexless marriage. He said he changed his clothes to take the dogs for a walk, and he had left his other clothes in the kitchen. He then said that he couldn't explain how they ended up in the suitcase in the attic. He suggested that there was a second man in the home and that he used his clothes to clean up, and then put the bloody clothes in the suitcase along with items they were going to steal, and then for some reason put them in the attic. He was then asked why the top that he did give them had blood on the inside, which would obviously mean it had to have come from his body. He said, "I have nothing to say to that." Asked if he loved his wife, he replied, "God, yes." He said that Celine was a tower of strength to him, and when asked if he was unhappy in his marriage, he said, "No comment." I just feel like that's very conflicting. Like, I love her, God, yes, and she was a tower of strength, but no comment when you say, "Were you happy?" This I found weird. He said that both professionally and personally, their relationship was very, very close. I just feel like saying professionally sounds irrelevant, and particularly in that scenario, like, I don't know why you or anyone cares if your professional relationship is close because it's your personal relationship. I don't know. I know loads of couples work together. I just thought it was a bizarre statement to make. He did deny having an affair, but eventually he admitted to it, and he put it down to being a midlife crisis. Jean, if I hadn't mentioned before, was engaged to a man named Keith. And Lillis said that he knew she was engaged and that he wasn't jealous, that he doesn't do jealous. He said he never intended to leave Celine, that he would never break up a family, and he denied ever discussing divorce with Jean Tracy. Even when guards put it to him that, like, he wouldn't be the first man to let his mistress think that he was gonna leave the wife, he still denied that he ever discussed divorce. He also was adamant that Celine did not know about the affair. So Gardaí said that when asking about him, no one had a bad word to say about him, whereas they described Celine as a strong, formidable woman. I mean, of course, that's how the woman is described, and that's a bad thing, but if a man is strong. When asked if she was a dominant person, slightly on the bullying side, Lillis said no. They put it to him that he was a second-class citizen in the marriage, earning a measly $100,000 a year compared to Celine's $500,000 a year from the company that they both worked at. And apparently Celine would regularly shout at him, like, "Come here, do that." He denied this. He said that none of that was true. He told Gardaí that there was no argument that day. He said, "We've had rows before, but nothing like that. I just wouldn't be capable. Not to my wife, not to her, not to anyone." End quote. He said that the scratches on his face were from when he picked up her hand to check for a pulse, and that's how, because she had long nails, that she scraped him. He also said about it being that they used to do that, like it was a gesture of love, that they would like touch each other's face. And I don't know why he was tying those two things in together. He also claimed that while holding her hand, she squeezed it. She opened her eyes and squeezed it. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I'm sure you've tied it together now. The note that was found on his bedside locker obviously spoke about that she will marry Kay. Jean was obviously engaged to be married in June to Keith, a man named Keith. So obviously they tied that together. Lillis insisted that the note was not about that. He said it was a short story that he was working on about a doomed love affair, and that yes, he had based it on experience. So after only a day of the arrest, the DPP, which is the Director of Public Prosecutions, decided that they wanted to bring it to trial, which it did in January 2010. The jury was 6 men and 6 women. They heard that Celine had suffered 3 blows to the head. They believe that the first one knocked her to the ground, and then the next 2 were done after she was already on the ground. Lillis denied that he had any part to do with it up until the trial came, and when he took the stand, he said that they had a violent row that morning because he forgot to put the mealworms out for the birds. By his account, his wife's death had been a bizarre accident. He had not seen her fall the first time, he claimed. The second head injury could have come when he pushed her against the living room window in the heat of the argument, and the third one was when he tried to stop her biting his finger after they had fallen onto the decking. I don't know how. I mean, the The post-mortem showed that the first blow knocked her to the ground, and that was it, she was down. So I don't know how he can pretend that he doesn't know where that one came from. He still pleaded not guilty to murder, and on Friday, January 29th, 2010, he was found guilty of manslaughter. The jury had deliberated for 9 hours and 28 minutes, and he was sentenced to 6 years and 11 months in jail. While in jail, Lillis focused on his artistic development, including painting and his much high-profile involvement in a play that was watched by the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins. I get that it's like, I get that stuff like that is to like rehabilitate people, but just for him, it just sounds bizarre, like the President of the country going to watch a play starring or directed by a wife killer. It just sounds bizarre. Maybe I'm biased. He also wrote an essay which won an award in Listow's Writers' Week, which is like a really prominent writers awards and writers competitions here in Ireland. Family and friends have basically disowned him, and they want nothing to do with him, including his daughter, who in a 2011 court case over assets said she would rather stick pins in her eyes than see him return to the home where he murdered her mother. It's interesting how the Irish court system works. So basically, in a dispute over the assets, they had an apartment, they had a villa in France. The French court said that he could not keep it, and it went to the daughter, Georgia. But here in Ireland, there's currently like a loophole or a gap in the system, which means that although a killer cannot inherit like assets or anything from their crimes, if they already jointly own them, they will be allowed to keep them. So his daughter and Celine's brother and sister went to court to try stop this, so that when he got out of prison, he would not get 50% of the assets, essentially. Unfortunately, he lost this, and he got €1 million basically from the sale of the different properties that they had. So essentially, when he came out, he was a millionaire after murdering his wife. There is currently a bill trying to be passed through the courts in Ireland. It'll be called Celine's Law, and it will essentially stop criminals from gaining or being allowed to keep assets as a result of their crimes. In 2015, Eamon Lillis was released, and as far as I know, he is living in the UK or some other part of Europe. When he left prison, he went to the UK to stay with his sister, and he returned and bought a home not far from their home in Howth. And shortly after this, when he couldn't reignite relationships with his daughter or family, he is said to have left and gone back to the UK or onto other parts of Europe, because now he has loads of money and he can just go live in Spain or somewhere. So that is the case of the murder of Celine Cawley, or the former Bond girl. If you hadn't heard this case before, let me know what you think. I know, again, it was big in like our media, but I just couldn't see it out there being discussed by anybody. And so if it has, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that it was being put out there. But yeah, so hopefully in the next case we'll see you again. Thanks, bye.